All right, today I want to welcome Erik Wolf. Erik is a professor, a scholar, and a marketer. Erik's goal is to change the conversation around marketing. He started that by co-authoring uh, the unified marketing system. I've had some insights to it. I'm telling you, this is well thought out. This is something you're going to want to listen to. He is the founder and CEO of the marketing agency Estound. That's Estound. It was established in 2006. And along with his team, Erik has helped executives plan and execute strategies to connect with their markets, grow revenue, create lasting and predictable ROI. Boy, I tell you what, that sounds seductive. Predictable and lasting ROI.
Wouldn't that be
And
nice?
yeah, it's a dream come true. And he helps them facilitate lucrative exits. So I have really been looking. I've known Erik for a
Uh,
year or two.
I'm, I want to say it's been a little bit more than a year.
Okay. Well, and we've kind of known each other on LinkedIn, and it's LinkedIn is such a neat platform. Relationships begin there. This is actually our first time talking semi in person, and I've been looking forward to it. Erik, welcome.
Thank you. I'm super glad to be here. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. So the we were talking so first off, and we're going to get to this. So for those listening, we're going to get to the unified marketing system because I want to learn more about it. I think Erik's I appreciate systematic thinkers, and I can tell you Erik is a systematic thinker, but he's kind of an unlikely one because it also comes from a graphical design background. Those folks are not always systematic. But Erik, rumor is you got hired to be on a TV show.
I got hired. I got hired as a producer on a TV show. I was in Atlanta. I had been in my I was as a college student. I was very involved in my campus video production club. I had produced the first TV show at our campus. I was really into the idea of having a career in TV and video. And so I got hooked up with this guy who was looking for a producer, who's starting a show, super well funded. He had sponsors, and we were going to make this show. He hired me. It was awesome. I signed a 12-month lease on an apartment. And after a few weeks, I noticed that my bank account was going in the wrong direction. And I said, "Hey, how about a paycheck?" And it turns out that the show was completely imaginary. And so I was the producer of an imaginary television show, and I had no money. I had a degree in political science, which not, turns out political scientist isn't really a job. And
Yeah.
so I had been self-taught as a graphic designer. It was a hobby, and I ended up doing that for just like, I got to make some money. This is a thing I know how to do. I guess I'll try doing this. And I ended up, after a number of months at a company where my cubicle, I wasn't working in marketing. I was working in it was basically like book production. We were making technical manuals. And so I was on that side of the business, but my cubicle was with the marketing people. And I started overhearing the things that they were talking about, and I got interested, started sneaking into meetings, with flimsy excuses about things that I needed to talk about, or about our technical manuals. And I was like, okay, I can this is interesting to me. I can do this. This is creative. This is kind of lighting up all the good parts in my brain. And so I sort of used design as my wedge to get into marketing, and I haven't looked back.
So uh, let's back up a little bit to this TV show. What imaginary? What do you mean when you say an imaginary TV show? What was going on?
It's possible in retrospect that the gentleman was mentally ill. If I'm being completely straightforward and honest, there were signs that it wasn't a real opportunity, um, and I was too young and naive to read them. Um, but but yeah, he said that he had this TV show. He said he had all these sponsorships. None of it was true. None of it was real. I was going around. I was calling production facilities. We were getting ready to get a studio to shoot in. I had recruited. I had introduced him to a friend of mine from college who was an actress, and he was interested in hiring her as a host. And and I went for weeks down this rabbit hole with this guy, only to find out that it was all basically a figment of his imagination. There wasn't any money. There were no sponsors. There was there was nothing to suggest that he had any wherewithal to be doing this. And you know, it was fictitious.
My goodness. The Now you moved to Atlanta to be on that show. Where did you move from?
Well, I was in Atlanta for college, and I ended up staying there as a result of I went to Emory, and so I was and the way that I'd met this guy was because I was in Atlanta and I was involved with this video production kind of thing. I had known a few people that worked at CNN and places like that, and this friend had come to me and said, "Hey, I just heard this guy is looking for a person. It came to me, but I'm happy where I'm at. You should talk to him." And
You,
so I ended up, like, with an apartment and everything in Atlanta after I graduated, and it was, yeah.
there are some that would say, well, geez, you got your degree in political science and you're surprised that you got pulled into a false reality. And
Oh, that's a good joke.
wow,
Yes.
but that would be, I mean, I would be furious. I'd be crushed. I think I'd be embarrassed.
I was terribly embarrassed. And so emotionally, a couple of things happened to me that definitely colored the things that happened next for a while, and actually still kind of color things a little bit. But I was sort of bitter about having to, doing this low level graphic design work and this production work. I'd gone to college, I'd gotten a degree, I'd gone to a good college, and I ended up with a job that I was legitimately just as qualified for before I attended a day of college. So there was that, and the fact that it now had ruined kind of a hobby that I liked. Um, and then I was really embarrassed about that whole episode, to the point where I was like, okay, now I'm kind of paying some bills. I'm back on my feet a little bit. Should I go and find a job doing this thing that I really wanted to do? And I was just too embarrassed to. I was too embarrassed to even put myself in a situation where I would even have to tell the story.
Mm.
And and legitimately, I haven't. I don't think that I've told this story in 20 years. Um, this is something that, like, that still I don't talk about. It's kind of like an interesting page in my history. In kind of a indirect way, it ended up putting me on the path that I was ultimately supposed to be on. But yeah, very very embarrassing. Very, like, it hurt me in a very, like, you know profound sort of way.
Wow. I'm sorry. it's sad when we see cruelty like that can leave such an incredible scar. Um, but you started working your way out with something you did as a hobby.
Yes. And it was, and I'm glad that I had that to fall back on. I'm glad that I'm glad that it was there for me at that point. But I legitimately came out of college with no direction. Like you said, I was a political science major, and the only thing that materially, that right out of school, I believe that you can do with a political science major is go enroll in law school. And I took the LSATs. I didn't want to do, but I couldn't. I was sitting with my law school applications, and I legitimately could not fill them out. I was like, no, this is not going to happen. This is not where I'm going. Um, I want to do, I want to be in production. I want to be in television or video or something in that realm. It was a really, digital, the whole digital revolution in that medium had just started a few years earlier. This was 1999. I was, and I was like, this is exciting to me. I want to do this. And so I ended up literally back at square one with no concept of what I was going to do for a career, no concept of how I was going to make money. Um, I worked at my first job out of college um, was doing newspaper layout at the Marietta Daily Journal, and I was making like $10 an hour, and I'm like, oh, this is what I do with my Emory degree, and it didn't, and it didn't feel good, and I knew that I was going to go somewhere, but it was very scary at that moment in my life to have no idea of where that somewhere was going to be.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about graphical design. So it became a hobby for you, and and what is it you like about graphical design? What inspires you, and what do you feel when you're doing design?
So my inspiration, way back in the day. So my father was a, well, he's still alive, but he is no longer a newspaper publisher. But he was in the newspaper business, and way back in the early '80s, my dad was already thinking about, how are computers going to change how we make things. And so in 1984, and this is really one of my most kind of formative early memories, he and I went to a computer store. I lived in New York City. We went to a computer store in Manhattan, and and we were looking at this Macintosh, this little beige box, and you had McPaint, and he was like, "Here, you can draw with this." And we sit down in front of the computer. He hands me the mouse, and we're drawing, and it took me, probably 5 minutes to figure out that you could use the paint can tool and fill the space with like a brick wall. And they had a spray can tool, and so I could actually tag the computer, which was a big thing for a kid in, New York City to be doing when he was, 7 or 8 years old. So from 19, and my dad ended up getting one of those Macs. And so it's like I had this thing in my house. I was always using it to make things. The idea that I could make things with this was really one of my kind of biggest things. My parents were very sheltering. I didn't have a lot of friends, but I had the computer. In third grade, I won a writing contest for a for a comic book that I drew on McPaint.
Oh,
Uh,
that's
I
awesome.
was I was that kid. It wasn't drawn very well, and there wasn't much of a story, but I was the only one who had thought to do that, and so there I go. I won a contest with something printed on my dot matrix printer, and so that was. That was cool. There was I did, very few people seem to remember HyperCard, but HyperCard was uh, probably, I mean, really kind of the grandfather of current websites. But it was this incredible creative platform where you could make all these different kinds of things with, it could be a database, it could be a story, it could be basically anything. And I drew like little choose your own adventure games, and I built them out in HyperCard and like that. Those were things that I did in my spare time. I was that kid.
Yeah.
So that led me to, ultimately, to things like Illustrator and Photoshop, and making logos for things. I started a newspaper at my high school, and I did all the layout, and I did the logos, and this was something that I genuinely enjoyed at the time. And in college, I would make logos for things. Somebody's club needed a logo. Here you go. And so I was a weird kid. I'm not going to lie to you.
Well, when you were doing that, I was printing out nude photos made out of ASCII characters on dot matrix printers. So I think probably you were making the better choice than me.
Although I think that we could probably agree that your hobby led to a more lucrative industry than mine. I think, that's the pictures now, they've gone beyond the dot matrix, the little ASCII characters, but big business now. Congratulations.
Yeah.
You've done well.
So anyway, so obviously at some point, so let's jump ahead to
Yeah.
you were, so you're in this sham of a TV show, and then you start piecing things back together to using, doing graphical design to pay off debt and kind of get yourself back on your feet. How did you get, so now you have Estound, your
Mhm.
agency, and you have your unified marketing system. I mean,
I do.
everything I've seen of that, it's extremely well thought out. It's very methodical. It doesn't look like the product of your average graphic designer.
No.
Uh, and how did you get there?
I got there. The short version is that I ended up at a company. It was an early cybersecurity company. I was doing design on a series of technical manuals and production on those things. But I was in a block of cubicles with the marketing people, and I kind of decided that I liked what they were doing better. And I was kind of fascinated with the idea of marketing. I really didn't know that it was a thing, that was done like intentionally. I thought that marketers just did fun stuff. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna make tchotchkes and put your logo on it, and we're gonna make TV commercials. It's all fun, but I realized in listening to these folks that there's a strategy behind it. There's this thing called branding. There's this whole strategic interconnectivity of all of these things that are happening in the company, between sales and operations and marketing, and I really wanted to learn that. And I discovered that graphic design could give me actually a seat at that table. And I kind of parlayed that into a job, and then I parlayed that into another job. I went to school, got my MBA, at night, in marketing. And while I was working, I ended up being the head of a marketing communications department at a manufacturing company. And then ultimately, when I left that job, I said, we're gonna do this, go out, strike out on my own. And that's where the company came from. And been doing that ever since. Now 18 years.
Very cool. Now, if you were to describe the what unified marketing system is, if you were to describe that in like two or three sentences, what would you say?
So what I would say is that the reason that people fail at marketing, the reason the companies fail at marketing, is because they're unprepared. They skip directly to the solution. We're going to get SEO, we're going to get a website, we're going to do direct mail, we're going to do billboards, whatever it is. We've already decided the solution, but we haven't done any of the work to figure out what that solution should have been. And so what the unified marketing system is, it's the gap between understanding that you need to do marketing and making sure that you're actually prepared when the time comes for the rubber to hit the road.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the problems, and as a marketer, I certainly run into this. You walk into a meeting with a client, and you discover half the company believes they're expert marketers because they look at what you do and they think, "Oh, this is simple. I can do this." This is, my dog likes, fuzzy toys, so I think everybody, should get fuzzy toys for their dog. That's my marketing. And so a lot of people look at marketing and see it as sort of, you know, some idea that comes in their head, and it'll just naturally be successful.
There are two things that I've learned, and both of these are things that honestly I wish that folks would let go of. But number one, the idea that and these were things that I had. We work with slightly bigger companies now. We really are like a mid-size marketing specialty firm. But especially when we were working with early on, like 1, 2, 3 person kinds of companies, there were two things that we saw, and actually the thread carries through to the bigger companies. The number one, starting the company sort of made you a marketer. And everybody would look at people like, Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, all of these people who, it's like, no, they just had an idea and they did it. And they decided, Steve Jobs said that we're going to do it this way. We're going to do it this way. And he was right. And it's like, what you don't understand, of course, is that you're comparing yourself to people who have this innate ability. They came with an understanding. Steve Jobs came with an understanding of how to do this that is not bestowed on very many people.
Right.
Just like if you had like a friend in high school or something that could play any instrument, or who could pick up any sport and be the best player on the field on day one, like that natural athlete. People like Steve Jobs and Richard Branson, they do these things naturally. And we have to do a lot of work in order to get ourselves to a level where we're at a fraction of what they are. And then the second thing and you alluded to it, but it pissed me off so much when people would say, well, I could do this, I just don't have time, so I'd rather just hire you. And it's like, no, you can't do this. You don't know what you're doing. And while with website builder tools and the fact that anybody can learn how to read Google Analytics, and how anybody now for, used to be that if you wanted Adobe Creative Suite, you were paying about $2,000 for it. Now it's like $50 a month. Now anybody can have, with a minimal investment, the same tools that professionals use. They can have, we've got AI, people can create content anytime they want. But the thing that they're missing is the part where you've got the experience of somebody that actually knows what they're doing driving the car. Being a good driver and knowing how to drive are two different things. And that's that's the thing that a lot of people tend to miss. And so from that seat, we make a lot of mistakes, and we jump ahead and we pre-decide what it is that we think that we need, and we opt for solutions before we even think about, well, what does that mean? If I think I need a new website, what does that mean? And how am I going to get from here to there? And how am I going to make sure that it works for my business?
And
And
you,
yeah, go
and
ahead.
yeah, and you said something really key there, in your driving analogy. I would guess, I'll definitely speak for myself. I would guess the same is true for you. You could put me in the best car in NASCAR, put
Yes.
me out on the track, I'm going to lose.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You're not only are you going to lose, but hopefully you walk out of the car.
Right. So the barrier between me winning a NASCAR race is not the car. The barrier is the lack of skill.
Right.
And you're saying with marketing, it's not having a license to Adobe Creative Suite, it's knowing how to drive it.
It- It's knowing how to drive it. It's knowing how to make a connection with your audience more than anything else. I mean, it's not the things that we like to think that it's us, that we're the ones that are creating this revenue, we're creating this success. It's our customers that are putting the water in that pool.
Hmm.
And our success is governed by our ability to form a real connection with those folks. And so for business owners, and here's the contrast to that, is that I know from being a business owner and from working with business owners, I'm sure that you know the same thing. There are very few people with less objectivity than
Yeah.
people who run their own businesses. We are we are very, very opinionated about what our stuff does and what it's good for.
Well, I tell my clients straight up, please don't copy my marketing. It's horrible. I'm the worst marketer of myself because I lack that objectivity that you're talking about.
And that's a problem that we have to acknowledge, that we have to solve. When I go to, and I use this all the time, but when I go to Home Depot and I'm buying a hammer, I'm not buying a hammer. I'm buying the wall of family pictures that's outside of my kitchen. I'm buying a result, and every buying decision is an emotional decision. And if you spend all your time doing the same thing that 9 out of 10 business owners do, which is trying to convince me that you've built a better mousetrap, well, that's not solving my problem. That's not giving me a level of comfort in that my job is going to be secure if I buy from your company, or that my problem with my finances is going to be solved, or um or that my rice is going to be cooked in 20 minutes and dinner is really going to be on the table on time, because those are the things that I'm buying. I'm not really buying the device. I don't usually want a device because it's a device. I want a device or a service because of what it's going to do for me.
And we one of the examples I love to draw to that, you mentioned Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs had amazing natural talent, but he
Yes.
also did meticulous research. Most people
Yes.
miss that. He did meticulous research, but when they brought Steve Jobs back to Apple in 1997, Apple was on the verge of bankruptcy.
Yes.
They were broke. And Steve Jobs spent millions of dollars running a 60-second TV ad that said absolutely nothing about computers. It was the
Right.
Think Different ad.
That's
Here's to the
right.
crazy ones. And that's tying it. I bring that up because, what you're saying is people want the transformation. Quit selling your product or service, sell the transformation that it delivers. And Steve Jobs realized if he was going to save Apple from the brink, he needed to inspire a narrow group of people. He'd done his research to find out that the most enthusiastic buyers of Apple computers were creative types. And he said, and it was a real simple question. He's like, how can I sell the most computers the quickest to the people that have the strongest affinity for what we do. And it
And,
was great.
and he simplified the message. He created a message where there was none. He simplified the product line. He created an ecosystem where everything that they did fit together in a very clean way for the types of people that needed Apple products, that wanted Apple products. And at the end of the day, we all run our businesses to serve our customers. We run our businesses to make them happy, to make them feel that they're they're better they're better people because we're in their lives in some way. Their career is better, their life is better, they're happier, they're more well adjusted, whatever it is. We're selling people their own time, we're selling people their mental health, we're selling people that next step in, that next promotion at work. And we have to understand that if we're going to actually make a difference. And we try to tackle those things in our process so that the most common thing doesn't happen, which is the customer being overlooked by the marketing.
Yeah. Erik, I wish we could go on and talk for another hour. I love hearing how you think. I love your story of resilience. I think it's amazing that I think your story altogether is amazing. How you fell into this, kind of this tragedy of events, but you looked at it and shaped who you became, the path that it put you on. And you have a rare combination of the creative part, the graphical designer who has a deep appreciation for a systematic approach, the unified marketing system. And I think that's an amazing combo. I think you have an amazing story. And I really hope people will reach out to you. How did people reach you?
I'll tell you, the easiest way is on LinkedIn. Connect with me, say hi. It's just, LinkedIn slash whatever it is in slash Erik Wolf, ErikWolf. You should be able to find me. Our website is estound.com, ESTOUND. I honestly, I really just love connecting with people. I really want to, and I hope I can change people's mind about marketing. I am fully committed to improving attitudes around this part of the business that a lot of folks fail at and don't really enjoy working in.
Yeah, no, that's a great mission. And I think it needs to happen. Thank you for sharing that today.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.